Hello, my name is Nathaniel Heinrich-Barna, and today I will be presenting an exploratory analysis of judicial sentencing variation in district courts. The judiciary has long been a controversial topic in recent political history. A plethora of issues are found to be the main cause for this. For instance, Mark A. Graber, a professor published by Cambridge University, argues that the judiciary inherently links its members to politics, saying that it heavily influenced by the politicians it is meant to limit. Furthermore, in numerous cases, the judiciary has often forfeited legal matters by legislators, as it allows members of the legislative branch to maintain a sense of security while furthering their own political agenda. While this system creates its own issues, the mere existence of these interactions highlights the presence of political bias in the judicial structure. In Federalist Paper number 78, James Madison asserts that judges ought to regulate their decisions by the fundamental laws, rather than those by which are not fundamental, stating that the judiciary should regulate themselves not based on the current political agenda, but rather on legal precedent. While this statement was made in reference to the United States federal courts, the ideology still relates to the local courts of the individual states. When giving judgment on law, it is expected that the decision come from an unbiased source. If this ideology were to be ignored, a plethora of problems would manifest themselves in Texas's district court system, given that judges are democratically elected every 4 years. Furthermore, the electorate is specific to their respective county, creating a polarization of judges. This becomes jarring when one understands the jurisdiction of each court. For example, let's say that a 25-year-old man lives in Collin County. That man is only permitted to vote on the district judge found in Collin County. However, if that man were to leave Collin County and commit a crime in Dallas, he would be tried in the Dallas court system regardless of the fact that he cannot vote for the judges located there. This difference in jurisdiction is dangerous if large sentencing variation exists between the two counties. On top of this, the idea that the criminal had no say in the system that tries him highlights a direct violation of democratic values. My research sought to identify and explain this flaw by utilizing 3 counties all in close proximity to one another: Dallas, Collin, and Hunt. This research highlights the differences found among different district courts surrounding Texas, which proves a correlation between district judicial elections and sentencing variation. Furthermore, an analysis will be provided as to why this variation exists and its real-world application. Before examining the variation that occurs among the different counties, an exploration of previous research must be conducted to explain outlying factors that play a role in judicial sentencing. In 1994, Judge Donald C. Nugent published his research on how prejudice stemming from bias impacts the decision-making of the judiciary. Judge Nugent argues that to simplify complex flood of information from the world, humans tend to categorize objects, people, and occurrences into groups, types, or categories, highlighting the necessary actions taken to narrow the complex structure of society. This simplification has benefits to the legal system, as it allows judges to separate relevant information as well as segregate key facts. However, Nugent asserts that the oversimplification promotes bias, thus creating a partial system. This bias manifests itself from a multidimensional source, making it difficult to track the effects of certain characteristics on rulings. In fact, research from John H. Kramer and Jeffrey T. Ulmer showed that judges most commonly determined a departure from sentencing guidelines based on the offense type, severity, and criminal history. However, also found that gender, race, and mode of conviction play parts as well. To understand the electorate's effect on sentencing, data must be analyzed surrounding each county's specific political and demographic makeup. Furthermore, the political makeup of the district judge may also encourage particular sentencing as well. Max M. Schichenbach, professor of law from Northwestern University, produced research showing that Democratic appointees are more lenient than Republican appointees on certain crimes. Although this research utilizes the federal court system, its overall conclusion may apply to the local district courts of Texas. If Democratic appointees are said to be more lenient on certain crimes, then high variation should occur in crimes deemed politically controversial. Furthermore, research from Stephen J. Choi and G. Mutu Gulati argue that the political affiliation of the judge affects their citational practice, meaning that judges who are Republican are more likely to cite cases from other Republican judges, again promoting polarization. Combining the political makeup of these judges with the sentencing variation found among the counties will help emphasize on the current debate surrounding how to punish certain crimes. This exploratory analysis sought to understand variation in sentencing through counties containing population densities that are in close proximity to one another. For this research, the counties of Hunt, Collin, and Dallas were selected, with their population densities being 98.9 people per square mile, 1,265 people per square mile, and 2,695 people per square mile, respectively. These counties were selected as they all reside in the north-central Texas region, yet have vastly different demographics. To identify the specific criminal activity containing the most variation, data from the Texas Office of Court Administration's Court Activity Reporting and Directory System was utilized and analyzed. The data primarily showcased the sentencing pattern for district courts in the involved counties. The rates at which convicts are sentenced to prison was analyzed to showcase variation among the percentages with respect to the crime committed. Cultural differences in the counties will be evaluated through analyzing the types of judges elected into office. The hypothesis of this research is proven to be correct, meaning a variation among the districts aligned with the beliefs held by the electing force, meaning that judges ruling on general criminal cases were influenced by the county's opinion on the matter. Furthermore, an observation was made in which these variations became more prominent when a period of elections among the judiciary occurred, as judges attempted to sway the electorate into voting in favor of them. Data was collected from the 2020 United States Census to provide insight into each county's demographic. To analyze this perspective, a multi-level investigation was held in which criminal sentencing was analyzed through a multitude of years, including election years. This created a viewpoint on which valuable qualitative information was formed from. While this sentencing changed, the socio-political climate was controlled for, meaning that as certain values of the demographic changed, sentencing followed. Previous research supports the idea that such departure is affected primarily through previous conviction. However, this research did present that demographic effect of the electorate is inconclusive. The ratios between the types of sentencing between crimes committed inside of the district's court jurisdiction were compared to find the largest differences. Following this, the ratios were compared across the years of 2017 to 2021 to see if election cycles have any effect on them. Beginning our results section, we will start off with the annual median income of the 3 counties across certain households. In this chart, we see that Collin County's earning per capita far exceeds that of Hunt and Dallas, who are very similar. Furthermore, the order of Collin, Dallas, and Hunt as the highest earning to lowest earning remains true throughout the GRAS criteria. The data concludes that Hunt maintains the lowest medians while Collin maintains the highest. Following this, the gender statistics also show differing age averages for the 3 counties. Hunt holds the oldest mean age group at 38 years young. This is followed by Collin's 37.3 years, and lastly, Dallas's 33.4. In terms of gender, the populations are reasonably distributed, approximately 50% male to 50% female. From this data, we can conclude that the counties also maintain a vastly different age demographic. Racially speaking, the 3 counties differ immensely, with the percentages of white alone residents differing by over 30%. Furthermore, the percentages of African Americans and Asian residents differ by more than 10%. These percentages will become more important later when we analyze the distributions found in the district judge populations. Moving into judicial characteristics, we will look at the data found surrounding the demographics of the district judges to the respective counties, starting with Dallas. Dallas County holds 15 criminal judges, of which only 11 have served throughout the time period currently being investigated. Of these 11, 100% ran as Democrats in their election. 72.7% are female, and 45.4% are African American. Clear differences can be drawn from Dallas's pre-existing demographic, where approximately 50% of the population was female, and 21.97% is African American. Furthermore, Dallas holds an abnormal amount of white judges when compared to their county's racial percentages. Collin County, on the other hand, holds 13 district judges, where only 8 have served fully through the time period currently being investigated. Furthermore, of that 8, only 3 primarily deal in criminal cases. Again, we see a polarization of political values in these judges, with 100% belonging to the Republican Party. The trend seen in Dallas County regarding the gender rate is also continued, standing at 66.7% female. Finally, Hunt County, which only has 2% district judges, of which only 1 primarily deals with criminal cases, also is completely polarized in their political characteristics. However, an interesting fact pertaining to Hunt is that these judges have not been challenged in their elections for years, meaning that their re-election has been virtually uncontested. Finally, moving on to the main results of this section, I will speak on the discovered sentencing variation found in the district courts. The equation utilized for variation can be found here. This measures the average sentencing deviation of the percentages of those sent to prison for their respective crimes. The absolute values for the differences between the prison incarceration percentages were added and then divided by 3 to give the average variation. The top 3 crimes with the highest variation and lowest variation were promptly analyzed. The 3 highest varying crimes found during the years of 2021 to 2020, or 2017 to 2021 were aggravated assault or attempted murder, sexual assault of an adult, and felony DWI. For the first and last crimes mentioned, Hunt County varies extremely from the counties of Dallas and Collin. In other words, Hunt was much more likely to send a person to prison for committing aggravated assault or felony DWI. However, in the crimes of sexual assault of an adult, Collin actually outranked both Dallas and Hunt. In terms of the lowest varying crimes, sexual assault of a child, aggravated robbery, and theft took the top 3 spots by large margins. However, theft can be seen to be punished more harshly in Dallas County than it is in Collin and Hunt. The sentencing during election years, however, is where things become extremely interesting. For this study, the election year of 2018 was looked at, as most judges involved in the current study were up for a re-election that year. During this year, we can see that the crimes, except for felony DWI, completely changed. Drug sale became a highly contested issue, where Hunt varied extremely from Collin County. Furthermore, variation between the 3 counties also grew in family violence and assault. In terms of lowest varying crimes, they remained pretty much the same, with the only change being that of aggravated robbery to burglary. The data collected from the 3 counties points that specific crimes are roughly the same in their sentencing distribution. For example, the punishment for indecency or sexual assault of a child almost exclusively resulted in a prison sentence. Capital murder, and other homicides also carried the same similarities across the counties. This uniformity caused by the apolitical nature of these crimes. Research done by Catherine Beckett of the University of Michigan also correlates this idea. Beckett argues that the issues such as sexual assault of a child elicit a uniform emotional response from all people. This uniform response explains the uniformity of sentencing in those uncontroversial crimes which barely change during election years. Beckett compares these issues with that of position issues. According to the data, crimes that revolve around the political atmosphere were much more likely to vary across the counties, especially during times of re-election. From what is observed through the data reported from the TCARO database, it is easily concluded that a multitude of these cases revolve around that of substance abuse. According to researcher Kenneth J. Meyer from the University of Wisconsin, substance abuse has grown as a political discussion as well as a social one. This correlates the societal viewpoints on drugs in each county with the way their judges choose to sentence convicts. Furthermore, the idea of sentencing abuse becomes controversial in nature could support the fact that if highly varying crime in the perspective of sentencing among counties. However, as can be seen through the results, Hunt and Collin also variated, which would limit the idea that politics solely control the ruling of certain judges. While this mentality serves to limit the hypothesis proposed earlier, it can easily be explained for elections from past years are analyzed. Collin has increasingly seen a growth in their Democratic residents throughout the observed time period, which could be a leading Republican judges to more Democratic ratios in their sentencing distribution. This would allow them to maintain their power as district judges while also maintaining Republican power over the district. When beginning my research, I had originally found a void in how local courts were affected by their electorates. While previous research had been conducted at the federal level, district courts were mainly left alone. My research has filled this hole and shown that sentencing variation across the counties is observed. However, my research was limited in that it is generalized across the entire county. Individual judicial rulings were not analyzed, and therefore the specific traits that led to certain sentencing decisions were not reported. This research serves to challenge the democratic election of judges as it creates vast polarization in judicial systems. This polarization makes each county vary in certain crimes. For my closing remarks, the ratios between different crimes regarding their political controversy and other aspects make this research truly remarkable. This research highlights the changes found among different district courts surrounding Texas, which proves a correlation between county judicial elections and sentencing variation. This research can be used to further explore political changes that must be made to create a more even distribution of sentencing across Texas district courts. If this trend continues in future research revolving around other court structures in Texas, it may challenge the method of electing judges may not be the best for the Texas judicial courts.
Thank you. Nathan, how did you determine which results generated by your research method were most important in informing your new understanding?
Well, firstly, I decided that my results had to be compared to the county's ideology surrounding that of certain subjects. It's through that makes my research truly unique. By doing this, I was able to combine the results of my research with pre-existing demographical data, allowing my analysis to occur. By analyzing the political differences found in the two ideologies of the Democrats and Republicans, I quickly discovered that these differences could explain the variation I observed during election years. It was because of that I chose to highly base my results on the demographic nature of each county and then the demographic nature of the judges elected.
Thank you. How does your new understanding address a gap in the scholarly conversation?
Well, primarily, as I said during my presentation, there was a large gap in how the electorate changed judicial rulings on the individual judge. While there had been research previously done on how Republican and Democrat judges tend to rule in certain crimes, the electorate had never truly been analyzed for local Texas district courts. My research sought to fill this void and did so.
How did your expert advisor facilitate your deeper understanding of the research process?
Homa Lewis, an SMU graduate of law, helped me discover certain databases that I utilized for my study. Furthermore, she helped me understand the court structure found in Texas. This court structure is one that is very confusing, sadly, and it took a lot of time for me to truly understand the jurisdiction of each court. Furthermore, going into my analysis, I had a hard time trying to figure out why exactly Collin and Hunt differed. While I knew they had similar Republican judges, after having a conversation with Mrs. Lewis, I discovered that I should look into election years because that might be influencing the changing in sentencing.